Tennessee is going to regress this year. They went to the playoffs. They won 10 games last year. Why is it that they can't sustain that level of success this season? Why is it that Tennessee hasn't cemented themselves as an elite program that should be given the benefit of a doubt despite all that they lose during this offseason? The reason why I project Tennessee regresses this year is not because of them losing Nico Iamaleava. If anything, Joey Aguilar could prove to be a significant upgrade over Nico Iamaleava because this dude was the most overrated quarterback in college football. Up until that game against Vanderbilt, the dude only had 2-3 touchdowns in SEC play. Losing Nico isn't why I believe Tennessee is going to see slight regression this year. There are other concerns that far exceed the loss of Nico Iamaleava. They lose 3 of their top 3 wide receivers from last year. Deontay Thornton, Bro McCoy, Squirrel White, they're all gone. You're going to have 3 completely new receivers in this offense. Your offensive line loses 4 starters. Your secondary is incredibly thin. Your star cornerback, Jamal McCoy, suffered a significant injury at the start of this offseason. When will he return? That's to be decided. Your defensive line is still really good, but do you still have the same amount of depth at that position that you had last year that allowed you to rotate so many guys to win now entering this season? Despite the losses to guys like James Pierce, you still have a good amount of experience this year because you were able to rotate in so many fresh bodies. Do you still have the ability to do that? Because with the transfer portal and NIL now, very seldom do you see teams have the kind of depth as what Tennessee has on the O-line and D-line. The line of scrimmage is a huge question for the Vols this year, and it's one of the big reasons why I can see them regressing from a 10-win team to being a 8-win team this year. We don't know how good the receiving core is going to be. You can tell me that Chris Brazil has a breakout season, who you got out of the transfer portal last year from Tulane. I wouldn't push back on that. Mike Matthews was a really highly talented receiver coming out of high school, but just how good is he going to be? Is he going to be able to match or equal the production that you got out of both Deontay Thornton and Bro McCoy? That is to be decided. There are a lot of questions that Tennessee has entering this season that doesn't revolve around the departure of Nico Iamaleava. And the biggest loss that Tennessee took was them losing Dylan Sampson. Dylan Sampson was the driving force behind Tennessee making that playoff push last year. And that's why I say losing Nico doesn't really matter. It doesn't, because Dylan Sampson was the MVP of Tennessee football last year. This dude carried Tennessee's offense on his back. And normally, when you think of Josh Heupel and you hear air raid offense, you equate that to a team that's slinging that rock all over the field 40, 50 times a game, when in all actuality, Tennessee was a run-first team due to how good Dylan Sampson was. Now, Tennessee fans, their counter argument for losing Dylan Sampson is that, well, we got 2 really good running backs that should break out this year, Deshaun Bishop and Peyton Lewis. I'm not telling you that I'm against those guys breaking out, but it's hard to replicate the kind of season that Dylan Sampson had last year. Dylan Sampson essentially had the greatest season for a Tennessee running back in the history of this program. He was SEC Offensive Player of the Year for a reason. It's hard to go from that at running back to all of a sudden 2 guys who could be both split together as good as what a Dylan Sampson was. He kind of had a generational kind of season for Tennessee. So there are a lot of concerns for Tennessee walking into this season that I have for why I believe this team is going to regress this year. You have to play Syracuse week 1. You are a 2-touchdown favorite at the moment walking into that game. You could very well lose it. You got to play Georgia, who's going to be reloaded. Despite having a down season, you still lost to the Dogs last year. You got to play Alabama on the road this season. You beat them at home. Alabama's going to have better quarterback play than what they had last season. You got to play Oklahoma, who's going to be a lot better this season than what they were last year. When you played Oklahoma last year, your defense carried you to a win in that game. Florida, they were really close to beating you last year. They gave you a scare in Neyland. So it's not that I believe that Tennessee is incapable of replicating the success that they had last year when they made it to the playoffs. They could very well make it back to the playoffs once again. But what I'm telling you is that there is fair reasons to expect regression out of Tennessee this year, because it is incredibly difficult to replace the amount that Tennessee has to replace when it comes to the line of scrimmage, offensive line, defensive line, losing 3 of your most productive receivers. My reason for Tennessee regressing has nothing to do with Nico Iamaleava. It shouldn't really impact them at all. Joey Aguilar could very well be better than him. But there are a lot of deficiencies that Tennessee is going to have to address this season if they want to repeat once again as a playoff participant.